Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday Night Workshop for September. We're a little late this month because last month obviously was Labor Day. I always get Labor Day and Memorial Day confused. It was Labor Day in September. So therefore we're in the second week, or third week, second week. Curious thing now, this is September 10th, and I did not realize my father-in-law sent me some pictures today because there's the healing fields in Tempe with a flag for every victim of 9/11. I did not know this. I knew a couple of years ago they had done it, but I didn't know that they were still doing it. Anyway, my father-in-law was there and he's like, I know your cousin, what's his name? Let me go find his flag. So he did. He found the flag for me, and then he sent me the whole schedule. So I think I normally just watch it on TV for the ringing of the names and stuff. So I think I'm just gonna go there tomorrow and go sit and actually be there, because we were in New York one time and it was just a nightmare to get down there. I'm like, not on the day. So I think this will be fun. So anyway, that's why I briefly mentioned I was crying earlier, because I'm such an empath, and as soon as I just start thinking about it, I just start tearing up. So anyway, welcome to the Monday Night Workshop. Thank you for those of you who came out tonight, as well as everyone else who's online. What's this sign? What does this mean?
Oh, I'm just saying, remember to talk about the upcoming Omega 1.
Oh, I am being told to remember to talk about the upcoming Omega 1. The upcoming Omega 1 is starting on September 21st. Sure, September 21st it starts. It's our last Omega 1 for the year, and it is actually our last Omega 1s or any program scheduled. We don't have any programs scheduled in 2019 yet. We don't necessarily have the funds to put the deposits down, so we're going to kind of wing it next year, depending on how our finances end up being. So anyway, we're about half full, so there's still plenty of room, even though some people dropped out, but there's still plenty of room for those of you, if you know anybody. Sorry, Bethany, that's what you get for being here. If you know anybody that may be interested in attending, or even if you want to just attend again, it'd be a nice touch to end the year. We kind of wanted to end the year right this year, this month. And then the the Wednesday night workshop. So since this is the second week, the Wednesday workshop is actually next week, because it's the third week. So we will be having a workshop next Wednesday, but this is Facebook only, and we'll be talking about contemplating our death, I guess. Well, Gibbs just growled at me. I guess we're not going to contemplate death. Gibbs, the dog, will not contemplate death. The rest of us will. Of course, throughout history, many teachers and sages have talked about contemplating our death, and there's many benefits for doing it. Not with a morbid sense. I don't know why I did morbid, but not with a morbid sense. It's just a nice idea to be prepared. One of my favorite stories is talking about George when he passed away, and how prepared he was, and what a natural transition it was. I'm so grateful I was able to experience that. Is that the only announcements I need to make now? Awesome, thank you. Again, thank you all for watching on Facebook. Dave and Linda, I hope you're enjoying your vacation on the beach. Wish we were there, but I hope you can enjoy it for us, just not out to them. So tonight, I wanted to give you a story, or tell a story to you, about one of the greatest lessons that I've ever learned in my life. The reason why I like this story so much, it was because it was a personal lesson, where it was just me and George. And it was probably one of the first times that he had such an earth-shattering, not response, but effect upon me. And so when I think about George, I think about how many people he's impacted. Just the amount of people from being in the classroom, and then everyone personally that he would have interactions with. I remember when he was in his final stages of Parkinson's, and I was wheeling him around in a wheelchair, and there was a gentleman when you take the car to go get his car, the mechanic, and I'd gotten George out of the car and was wheeling him over to my car to transfer him, because we were going to leave George's car there. And anyway, Bill, the mechanic, was so sweet. He pulled me to the side and he said, "Who is that?" I'm like, that's George. He goes, No. Who is he? There's something about him. What does he do? Why is he There's something about him. Like I knew he knew. He'd never been to Omega, so he didn't understand. But I knew he knew there was something special about George, and I kind of just chuckled. And I'm like, go to www.omega.org, you'll find out. But that's how George had the effect. He had such a beautiful effect on people. And to me, I think his most prominent characteristic was his compassion. He was extremely compassionate. Even in the classroom when he was giving you feedback, it was still done with compassion, never malice. It was always done with the intention to make a contribution. So that I just wanted to give you an overall picture of George. When I think about this lesson, it really is something that I have carried with me from the moment he gave it to me and have tried to make it be part of my life. I was thinking about in society today, we're always so busy. I did the last workshop, or one of the workshops I recently did was in July, taking a pause, learning to meditate and pause, and listing off the different lists that we all have, the tasks to do, the get to things, and how difficult it is for some of us to meditate. And I did a very funny story about how I have a task to meditate, and I'm so busy doing my tasks, I'm actually not meditating, even though I'm supposed to be meditating. But I've got these little, got to do the colors and go to the nature scene, and I've got all the little checklist off, but I never really sit and actually meditate. It's like, oh, I'm here. Okay, good. Now go. Anyway, so I was thinking about how when we're in society with our tasks, that seems to be the main point. Updating social media, checking to see who checked our social media, doing the news, doing the task at house, task at home, task for work. There's always busy work to do. And naturally, when we are doing our tasks, we typically strive for, oh, this fly is going to fly into my face, I see him. So this will be nice animation. But we typically strive for perfection when we're doing our task. We want to do it right. According to us, we want to do it right. Now, what I really find a funny example, George used to talk about this. Our striving to do it right is much like the mother who says to the children, oh, here's how you make your bed, and then lets the kid make the bed in the morning and walks in and says, oh, good job, and starts adjusting the bed, fixing the comforter, fixing the pillows, but still telling the child they did a good job. That's a mixed message. So we tell the kid one thing, but then we're showing them they didn't do it right. And then what happens is the child tries to do what mommy wants me to do instead of doing what they naturally would do. Like there is only one way to make the bed. Of course, in the military, they would tell you there is just one way to make the bed. So the message that we send is like, do it my way. That's the message that we send to them. So sometimes we do this not just to our children, but we do it to our spouses. We do it to our coworkers, our family members, even our aging parents. We actually do things for them because we think they're not doing it right. So one of the greatest challenges that I have in my business is teaching people to delegate. It is the funniest thing when you ask people, why aren't you delegating? Almost every person says to me, oh, they're not going to do it right. So here I am working with an executive who's extremely overwhelmed, but they refuse to delegate because the people underneath them, oh, they're not going to do it right. And naturally, my first question to them is, well, who taught you how to do it right? I mean, it's not like you walked in and you knew what you were doing. Somebody passed it on to them. And they kind of chuckle a little bit and they'll say, oh, well, that person's not here anymore. And oh, yeah, well, maybe I'll give them something small. Now, of course, I know this has to do with a reflection in work. It's when you delegate something, it reflects back onto you, so there's a lack of trust. Or sometimes we find the one person that we know is going to do it, and we always go to them, and we ignore everyone else. Now, that could be nice for succession planning, but not really for good development of the department. So it's a struggle. I know it's a struggle. I've been dealing with this with people for almost 20 years now. They don't want to delegate. I got to get it right. And then what actually happens is when they start delegating, they become the helicopter boss. How's it going? What did you do? Oh no, you didn't do that. And hover. And naturally, when you're working and someone's hovering, you're going to make a mistake because they're constantly hovering and they put the added pressure. And 9 times out of 10, When the mistake happens, the person goes, see, I told you I shouldn't have delegated. Not even recognizing or the reason why the person is making the mistake in the first place. Of course, remember when we taught our children how to ride bikes? Eventually you got to take the training wheels off. And we hold the seat for as long as we can as we're running with them, but then you got to let go. And they're going to wobble. They might even fall. Let them fall. Let them wobble, because that's how they learn. If they don't wobble, they don't gain the muscle strength to be able to keep balance. So we have to let them struggle. Now there's reasons why we don't like to let people struggle. We don't want to see them in pain. We don't want to see them suffer. We know we can help. We know we can make it better for them, and we rob them from the experiences of learning how to do things. So in the corporate world, this is really one thing that is quite funny on delegation. I don't want to go too much on that. You all understand. Now, please do not hear me say I'm talking that everything you don't have to follow rules and regulations. No, there's one way to put a needle in a vein. Do it the correct way. That you have to adhere to, but there's many different veins to choose from. So you can, the nurse or the phlebotomist, did I do that right? Phlebotomist, thank you, can choose, we can choose, but there is just one way. So I'm not saying there isn't perfection in some areas or striving for perfection. Naturally, we want to do that. I'm talking mostly about things that are not life or death. When it's not a life and death issue, it really shouldn't be made into an issue. Yeah, okay, it may not have been done the way we wanted it to be done, but it's done. The task is done. So when I was thinking about this, again, children cleaning their room. When I was taught how to clean, my mother taught me, you dust first. Dust first to get everything on the floor. Then you pick up the things off the floor, which never made sense to me, but anyway, you pick up things off the floor, straighten up your bed, vacuum last. That's the way I was taught. So always dust first, clean up, make bed, vacuum. So then proceed throughout the rest of the house. Dust is always first, vacuum is always last. So dusting's first, floors are last. That's the way I was taught. So then when I teach my children, dust first, you walk in the room and they're not dusting first, they're making the bed, what do we do? No, you gotta dust. Why? Does it really matter? Dust, make the bed first? Who cares? If you get all of them done, they're done. I mean, let them find their own pattern. But that's how it starts. We have the little, well, this is how I learned, and pass it down along the generation. So we have to have the ability to allow people their own expression, is the best way I'm going to say this. Now, to my lesson. Here we go. Back in 1990, when I first started Omega, one of the early things that I did was I was in charge of the volunteers for cleaning. That's kind of why I was talking about cleaning before. I was in charge of the cleaning volunteers. And every once in a while, on a weekend when there wasn't a training, we'd go in and we'd clean. And so this happened to be on a Saturday where there wasn't a training. And I went in, I had several volunteers. Some of them were cleaning the bathrooms, the kitchen, the mirrors that need to be done, the glass. There's a lot to do. So after I delegate all the tasks to everybody, then I go do what I was going to do. And I got done quite quickly. Honestly, I don't remember what I did. I think I just straightened up the staff area where the papers and everything were. So when I got done, I walked out and I scoped around for the other volunteers to see what they were doing. And I walked into the bathroom, and the man who was cleaning the bathroom was doing it wrong. I'm not kidding. He was doing it wrong. So I immediately said, oh, no, here, let me show you. And explained to him how to clean the bathroom. This is so embarrassing. 1990, just remember, 1990. So I explained to him how to clean the bathroom, and then I leave. And when I leave, I notice the woman vacuuming, and she's leaving streaks, but not nice lines. They're like circles and kind of. So naturally, I explained to her she was vacuuming incorrectly as well, that there's a way to vacuum. Don't look at him that way. But there is a way to vacuum. There's a way to vacuum. So I explained to her about the vacuuming, and go with the pattern of the carpet. Then I had, there's more. I head over into the kitchen. And the woman who is putting the dishes away is putting them in the wrong cabinet. That they didn't go there, they went in a different. So I explained to her the series, the way the kitchen is set up, and had her had her take the dishes back out and put them in the correct place. Yeah, this is nightmare. All right, so anyway, this is me. I'm walking around telling everybody what they're doing. And as I walk back in the room, I'm thinking, seriously, this can't be hard. What's wrong with these people? Yeah, I'm talking about volunteers. And so I head up into the front lobby, and I noticed that George's office door is open. And I was a little puzzled because I knew he wasn't there. So I kind of stepped around the corner, and sure enough, he was. He was standing there, almost like he was waiting for me. And I kind of looked and said, can I get you something? You know, are you okay? Like, this is 1990, so I barely know him, right? Is everything okay? Oh, yeah, I'm just waiting for you. Now that kind of, what? What do you mean you're waiting for me? And he invited me to sit down. So I'm a little nervous because it's George. You know, when the first time you met him is George. So I was a little nervous. I sat down, and he looked at me, and he started to speak. Now, this is where, like, when he spoke, those of you who remember him, he had that West Virginia drawl. Very soft, but he had that West Virginia drawl. But he was in a very serious tone. So it wasn't a playful West Virginia drawl. It was like, I'm about to say something very serious to you. So I had that little nervous butterfly in my stomach. And he said to me, how are you doing? I said, I'm fine, how are you? You know, one of those fast, I'm fine, how are you? No, oh, that's okay, what can I do for you? And he said, I'm fine. He chuckled a little bit, and then he said, well, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm here to clean building. And he said, by yourself? No, of course, there's volunteers. And then he said, how are they doing? Well, they're fine. And he looked at me and he said, well, how are they doing? And I was a little perplexed, so I then explained what they were doing. Like, someone's in the bathroom, there's somebody in the kitchen, I got somebody else doing the vacuuming, you know, the rooms are being cleaned and whatnot. And he was very patient and let me listen. And then he, again, with a little twinkle in his eye, said, how are they doing? Now, he's asked the question twice. Something's up. So I'm, again, nervous, new to the organization, you know, been around for just a couple of months, so I'm thinking I'm missing something. So I kind of sit and I look at him and how are they doing? How are they doing? Well, they appear to be doing their jobs. Like, I really was starting to stumble about what he was looking for. So I knew I was missing something. So then I started to describe my interactions with them. Well, you know, I went in and talked to the gentleman about cleaning the bathroom, and then I went in and talked to the woman who was vacuuming, and then I talked to the kitchen. So I explained my interactions, and he sat there and nodded his head, and then he said again, how are they doing? Now I'm starting to get like a little knot in my stomach. What's going on? A little pit's going on. I'm missing something. Uh-oh. He's upset. Did I do something wrong? That, you know, the story starts to go through your head. He's disappointed. Did I overlook something? And the fact that he keeps asking me this question, what's the point? I know I'm not stupid, but I'm not getting it. So I didn't know what to say. I sat there, and then I thought about it, and then I reiterated all the things that they were doing wrong. Well, I told him to do this, and I told him, and he nodded as I'm talking. And then as I went through every infraction, he nodded gently and looked at me again. And I'm waiting for the are they happy to come, or how are they doing? I'm waiting for that to come, and he didn't say that. He said, are they happy? Which kind of, what? I don't know. I guess so, is what basically my response was. And he said, how do you know? Well, I didn't know whether or not they were happy. I mean, it didn't even occur to me that why should be, I don't know. They're cleaning the toilet. Are you happy when you clean a toilet? I don't know. Like, that's what's going through my mind is, okay, I know he's missing something. I know he's asking me something. So I thought about this for a while. And then George looked at me. I didn't respond, and he said, did you do anything to make them happy? What? Literally, that's what I'm thinking. What? So I'm certain the expression on my face probably said it all. I did a little furrowed with the eyebrows. I squinted my eyes. I kind of went, huh? I don't know. No, I don't think I did. And, I started to get a little uncomfortable. And so I said, is it my job to make them happy? I'm certain I snapped a little bit. But is it my job to make them happy? Is kind of how I said it. And without missing a beat, George looked at me and said, is it your job to make them unhappy? What? I didn't make them unhappy. What? Like, that really captured my attention. So now the knot is going like, uh-oh, what? I'm just here to clean the building, right? What? And he goes, aha. Is it your job? I said, I'm just trying to clean the building right. That's what I said. I'm just trying to clean the building right. And that's when he said, is it your job to clean the building right or your job to clean the building? Now my mind's going, what the heck is he doing? And I know George always has an intention in his speaking. And so I sat there and was blinking like, what is he talking about? Is it my job to clean the building right? Am I doing something wrong? And again, a lot of questions kept going through my mind. And it's almost like he read my mind and he said, I want to let you in on a little secret. And paused. So now I'm thinking, okay, here it comes. He's going to tell me what he's looking for. And he said, it doesn't matter if the building is cleaned right. What? I mean, that's my head. What? And he said again, very calmly, it's like that moment. This is the moment where life stood still and the heavens opened and you hear this booming voice. If you've ever had those moments. So George's voice says, it's not about the task, it's about the people. Now, I know in my young little mind back then, I'm thinking, what the heck is he talking about? So I heard it's not about the task. So I sat there and I attempted to digest what he was saying. It's not about the task. It's not about the task. What do you mean it's not about the task? We're here to clean the building. What do you mean it's not about the task? What? And so it's going through my head. It's not about the task. It's not about the task. But if it's not about the task, why would we be here? Shouldn't we be? I mean, that's what we're here. Clean the kitchen, clean the building, clean the carpets. What do you mean it's not about the task? So I knew I wanted to argue with him, the young New Yorker that I was, a sassy young New Yorker. So I knew I wanted to argue, and so I kind of sat there, and one of the things I learned in Omega, think before you speak, reticence. So I sat and thought, okay, how do I want to respond to this? So I took a deep breath, and I said, how could it not be about the task? Very as calmly as I could be, not in your face, just how could it be not about the task? And he waited patiently, and then he laughed. And he said, you only heard half of what I said. What do you mean? You just said it's not about the task. And then I started to argue. My patience kind of went out. And he said, you're missing the most important part. It's about the person. Now, my little brain is swimming here, but I knew something was going on. And so in my experiences, I'm just going to pause for a second. In my experiences, when I've had awarenesses that kind of are earth-shattering, it's kind of like time stood still, you get the feeling of flow, and then I experience like a shaking shift inside of me. I literally feel shaking from the inside out. I have no way to describe it other than that. That's the best way I can, and it's really not as accurate. But I started to have one of these moments. So I'm sitting there starting to shake, thinking, okay, there's got to be something that I'm going to get here, not realizing that I've already got it. I just haven't got it yet. So I'm saying to my head, it's not about the task, it's about the person. But don't you need the people to do the task? I'm still trying to hang on to the task. It's about the task. I'm still trying to hang on to that. And so I started, I'm sure, repeating it in my head. It's not about the task, it's about the person. It's not about the task, it's about the person. And so I kind of went, are you talking about the golden rule? Treat people the way they want to be treated to? And George chuckled and he said, no and yes and no. And he said, if you wanted to treat people the way you want to be treated, everyone would do exactly what you want them to do. That's not what I'm talking about. And he said, you have to remove yourself from the equation. It's not about you at all. It's about the person. So I'm sitting here now, I'm certain I had this very blank look on my face, and he said, you must remove yourself. Remember, these people are volunteers. They're not paid to be here. They gave up their Saturday to come and clean a building. How are you treating them? Are you being the boss? Are you dictating what needs to be done? Are you focusing on what they're not doing correctly? Or are you remembering their heart, that they came here out of their own free will to volunteer because they want to support this organization? Wow, now I'm embarrassed. I want to leave. I'm done. I resign. See ya. Bye. So I sat there, and he said, it doesn't really matter if the vacuum leaves lines. Now I'm certain I'm not listening anymore, because I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm thinking of all the times that I was told how to do something. I became it. I became that dictator of here's how it gets done. So he continues on, does it really matter if the vacuum leaves the lines, or if the dishes are in the wrong cabinet, or if there's streaks on the bathroom floor? Does that really matter? No. In the big grand scheme of things, of course it doesn't matter. And he said, what do you think these people are going to remember when you leave today? That there's streaks on the bathroom floor, or that you came in to correct them on the way that they were doing the bathroom floor? Holy mackerel. So, and then he says, how do you wish to be seen? That really was, how do I wish to be seen? Is this the type of person I want to be? Do I want to be the person who walks around finding flaw in everything that people are doing? Or do I want to be the person who's there acknowledging someone? Thank you for being here. Oh, I appreciate your help. Thank you for giving up your weekend. Is that the type of person? Well, of course, yes, that's the type of person I want to be. I hadn't even realized that I had transitioned into that control freak. I did. I transitioned into, it's got to be perfect. In my strive for perfection, I was ignoring intention. That's what I was ignoring. So, yes, ma'am.
We are our mother's children.
I'm going to slap you for saying that. No, I'm kidding. Thank you. We are. We end up being, what our parents passed to us is what we end up doing. So after he gives me this wonderful thing, he says, your search for perfection will drive people away from you. That's what he said. Your search for perfection will drive people away. Nobody wants to be around someone who's constantly critical. No one wants to be around someone who's always saying, you could have done it this way, you should have done it this way. How about trying it this way? Why don't you do it this way? Nobody wants to be around that. Everyone wants to feel supported and appreciated. So then I thought back to the way I was raised, and that's how it was. You know, this is how it gets done. And there is no ifs, ands, or buts. That's the only way we do it. Now, I'm not making my parents wrong. I mean, they did what they were taught. It was just passed down, passed down, passed down. So, as he's talking, I sat there and I thought, okay, I get it now. I'm being led with my head and not with my heart. I get it. I understand. Holy mackerel. I understand. So, from this point, what I ended up doing is I actually started to get tears in my eyes. You know, when you have that feeling of embarrassment and awareness and happiness and sadness, and so I started tearing up in my eyes, and I thought, okay, this is not how I want to be. And I'm going to tell you, George, he had such great timing. I mean, those of us who knew him, great timing. He sat, I don't know how long I was in my head thinking all this stuff, but I'm certain he knew it. Then he sat, and finally when I realized he was still there, he looked at me with such depth and compassion and understanding, like he knew I was having a process. And if you remember George, he would do that little gentle nod. Nothing needed to be said. He just nodded like he knew, you got it? No more words needed to be said. So he just nodded at me very gently. And I knew. I was like, okay, that's it. So I stood and I said, thank you. And as quickly as I could, got out of there. Went to the bathroom, cleaned up a little bit, and then I thought, what do I do? And can I repair the things I've already done? like, what do I do? Now, I knew the volunteers are still there. They're still cleaning. So I took a deep breath, and as I was about to leave the bathroom, the gentleman came in to clean the women's room. And he was like, oh, I didn't know you were in here. I was like, that's okay. And so I asked him if he wanted any help. And I remember when I asked him if he wanted any help, it wasn't like, you're doing it wrong, let me help you, kind of, do you want any help? It was a genuine, do you want any help? Can I help you? Like an actual service, an act of service. And so I remember saying that, and I remember feeling it differently in my voice, and he looked at me differently. And the way he looked at me, like, I never realized his eyes were blue. I know who he is. His eyes were blue. He had the most gentlest face in the world. I hadn't seen it before. I just hadn't seen it. And he looked at me and smiled, and he said, oh no, I think I've got it, thank you. I appreciate that. And I joked around a little bit for, he's going to be my bathroom guy now, and I know he wants to be in the women's bathroom. I got it. But I kind of joked around so that I wouldn't feel so, oh my gosh, I just was like belligerent to this. Not belligerent, but this is how you clean the bathroom. Like, he doesn't know how to clean a bathroom. So I left him, and then I went over to the back where the woman was vacuuming. Now, she had already done the back lobby, and she was in the big room. Those of you remember, it was a very large room back there, and she was halfway done. And as I started walking to her, I stopped dead in my tracks. She was limping. I hadn't even noticed she was limping before, but she was limping. So I quickly went up to her and said, are you okay? Did you get hurt? And she said, oh, no, I sprained my ankle on a jog earlier this week. Now I'm embarrassed that I had been talking to her earlier and I didn't even know she was limping, and I gave her the task of vacuuming when she's got a bad ankle. Like, I hadn't even asked. And so I felt truly bad, and I let me finish it for you, please. And she's like, no. And this is the first time I heard this word, conscious suffering, but she said she wanted to do some conscious suffering, which later I understood what it meant, and she wanted to finish her task. Now it was a task. She's going to beat it and not let her ankle get in the way. And so I did my best to kind of move the cord around for her so she wouldn't have to struggle. And if you remember, the vacuum had a very long extension cord on it, so you didn't have to keep unplugging it, but it was a very long, heavy cord. So I kind of gathered up as much as I could and tried to help her. And then I left. Now I'm feeling very embarrassed that I can't believe I never noticed the gentleman's face, and I didn't notice that she was limping. I was afraid what I was going to discover in the kitchen. I'm like, please, don't tell me the woman's got polio and I didn't see it. So I took a deep breath and I walked into the kitchen, and there was the woman sitting down. And she looked up at me very apologetically, and she said, I just need to take a little rest. And I looked at her and I realized, oh my God, this woman is like twice as old as me. And she's in there trying to clean the kitchen to my standards. I mean, I really did. I sunk on this one. And so I sat down with her and I said, no, that's okay. We could take a break. And I sat down and asked her if she wanted some water, and brought her some water. And I sat and talked to her for a little bit. And she'd been around for quite some time. I had seen her, but she was in her 60s, so like 3 times as old as me, in her 60s. And she kept apologizing that she had to take a rest. And I mean, my heart was like, goodness gracious, don't apologize to me. And that's when I apologized to her. I shouldn't be barking at you. Who cares where the dishes go? Thank you for putting the dishes away. And so we kind of had a little bit of chuckle with it. But I helped her clean up the rest of the kitchen. And finally, all the volunteers, we all met in the lobby, and I thanked them again. And I think this is probably one of the first times that I actually had a heartfelt thank you. And I know this sounds very strange to say, but I was 27 when I came to Omega, so I was 27 years old. And it was the very first time I actually remember feeling a heartfelt thank you, where it wasn't just, oh, thanks, but I really felt welled up inside and appreciative of these people. And later on, when I reviewed this lesson, had it been for those people, I wouldn't have learned my lesson. So they actually gave me an opportunity to learn something tremendous. So anyway, I thank them for that, and I again expressed my apology for snapping orders, and appreciated the way that they cleaned their house, and welcomed them to come and clean my house now, which they denied, but they thanked me and continued on their way. So I locked the back door, and then I headed back up to the front, anxious to see George, to see if he was there, because I wanted to tell him my experience. And as I turned the corner, his door was closed and the light was off, so he had already gone. And I had that moment where I sat down and I thought, was he really here? I did. I had that moment like, was he really here or did I just imagine that? Now, I went for he was really here. And months later, when we had the conversation, he said that he had shown up to get something out of his office, but he had heard me talking to the person in the bathroom. So he kind of hid, but followed along to listen what I was saying to other people. So George. But anyway, back to the day when I went and his office was closed. I shut the door and I sat in the front lobby for a while, and I just sat and I started doing this as a tradition. I sat and just felt the building for a moment. So I thought of, this building was built by volunteers. It's been cleaned by volunteers, kept up by volunteers, paid by volunteers. The program is delivered by volunteers. The building literally was a place of heart. And I sat and really felt the spirit for the first time, the spirit of Omega. It's almost as if you can, in the movies, sometimes you see people walking in old places and they'll hear music playing in the background. It reminds you of things like 12 O'Clock High, the opening scene where the guy's riding on the airstrip and you can hear the songs of the World War II. That's what it felt like. I sat there and it's almost like I can hear 2001 playing, for those of you who know that. I can hear the song playing and then I can hear the laughter. And it's like I felt the spirit of Omega. And that's when it sank in with me. It's not about the task, it's about the person. Look at all these beautiful people I don't even know who've come here before me and will probably be gone or continue after I'm gone. But all these people, it's the spirit. And how am I treating them? The way I want it to be done, or being grateful for what they've done and shown up? So that to me was earth-shattering. So simple, yet so profound. And what I did with this is I actually started to use it almost instantly in my daily interactions, working with my kids. When I finally started having kids and my grandchildren, how do I talk to them? When I have them come over to my house, do I care if they're cleaning it one way or the other? No, I don't care. You want to help me clean? Help me clean. Not, that's okay. I remember the first time my oldest granddaughter, she must have been about 3, and she picked up the mop and said, "Can I clean?" And she was so excited. I'm like, "Sure, honey, sure." And she took the mop and dunked it in the toilet and started scrubbing the bathroom floor. I didn't say a word. "Honey, that's great. Thank you so much." Because I remembered it's about how you treat the person. And what was really funny is her mom came to pick her up. She's like, "Oh, she doesn't clean at my house." And I thought, yeah, because of the way you talk to her. I mean, it really was like, oh my gosh, you're right. So I did it with my children, my grandchildren. But the best thing is when you see it with your coworkers. Now, this is where I'm going to tie it back to work. I started out talking about people, how they have a hard time delegating because they want it done a certain way. I'm going to tell you, to get an executive to delegate something and not focus on the task is very difficult because we're in a work environment. You got to get the progress reports done, and you got to get the status done, and make the certain phone calls, and blah, blah, blah. All of this has to get done. And to explain to them, it's really not about their task. If you treat them differently, they'll actually surpass what you're expecting it. But there's a trick to this. If you walk into the conversation with the idea that you're going to treat them nice so that they will do better, they won't. It's this trick. You have to genuinely treat people nice regardless of how they're going to be. You treat them with honor and respect, gratitude, and draw the greatness out of them and let them surpass it. That's really the trick. So to ask executives and directors to pass this on to their staff is difficult. But supervisors actually do it better because they haven't gotten to that stage yet. So they're still kind of working with the people. So when we get to that part, and again, I'm not wanting to say all directors and executives. It's not true. I have met some very good CEOs that are just heartfelt. You're like, how do you get to that place? They're very inspirational. But when it comes to the way we treat people, I was thinking about family members. Like we have expectations of how our siblings should act, or how our parents should act, or even our spouses and our children. And sometimes with our spouses, sometimes we talk to our spouses as if they're our kids, and we correct them. That's not the way it should be done. And we talk to our spouses like we own them or they're, our responsibility. Instead of a co-working together, it's one up, one down, talking down to them. This happens a lot. I understand that happens a lot because we're accustomed to talking to our children. The hardest is when it ends up being the kids start talking to the parents that way. Oh, my mom and dad are too feeble. They don't understand. And the kids start being disrespectful. I guess respect is probably part of this as well. But the kids start recognizing that mom and dad are not doing things the way they want it done. So I'll use a story Linda Schulten used to use. This one always captures my attention. She grew up in the island of Vancouver. Her parents had a bakery. I want this life. You grew up in a bakery. Every morning she'd be down in the bakery, and so she'd always have help after school and on the weekends and of course during the summer. And it was a small town, so you kind of get to know people. And this is back in the 70s, so 60s, 70s, so you get to know people. And she said that in her early teens, it was a summer vacation, she was working at the shop, and this elderly woman came in customer. She'd been a customer for years. Linda knew them, they'd chat and everything. Well, the woman had gotten older and more feeble and not more agile, so the daughter kind of had taken over and was taking care of her mom. And so they get to the counter, and the older woman is in front of Linda, and the daughter's standing next to her, and Linda tells the woman how much it is. So the older woman starts going through her purse, and she's fumbling with the wallet. She can't quite get the wallet out right. And Linda said this just shocked her. The daughter just reached and said, "Oh, let me do it," and reached in and ripped the wallet out of the mom's hands. Now, Linda said the thing that really captured her attention is she was looking at the old woman. The poor lady's face was so embarrassed that she wasn't able to open her wallet in time and that her daughter had to rescue her. And she said it's like she kind of slumped. And it's almost like the daughter scooched the mom out of the way and just handed the money quickly, like Linda was wanting the money quickly. And Linda wasn't. There was on a line. It was fine. But the daughter had the expectation. You're not doing it fast enough. The daughter was impatient. Do it the way I want you to do it. And didn't realize how she was affecting her mom. Clearly was not aware how she was affecting her mom. But it captured Linda's attention. And she said from that moment on, she was like, I'm never gonna treat people like that. That's a horrible way to, impose your force on another individual. Now, of course, we know this. Torkham says, do not impose your desires and force your desires and opinions on others. Let them discover things on their own. So that's what we kind of comes down to when it comes back to this, the idea of it's not about the task, it's about the person. This is something that, again, I don't know if I've ever heard George say it in the classroom. But I know he's said it to me, and it has really become one of my mantras. It's not about the task, it's about the person. So then I was thinking about, in the years, since I've learned this, how have I been able to pass that on to other people? And I don't think I've ever said it in the classroom either. Like, even though it was such a really impactful lesson for me, I've never passed it on to anyone. I may have done it to my kids, the grandchildren, or if I'm having a conversation with some people, I will talk to them about it, but I don't think I've ever actually publicly announced it. That's why I wanted to do it tonight. I thought it would be a good thing to discuss, especially since we're, September, I always feel like we're entering into the holiday season, even though I know we're not, but before you know it, boom, it's gonna be here. And I always think about how people are always so much nicer in the holiday season after the shopping is done. They're so much more nicer in the holiday season. And wouldn't it be nice if we would be able to treat people this way all the time instead of just when there's a holiday season? So I was expecting a little bit more people in here to have discussions, but since we don't have as many as I like, David and Linda, thank you for not being here. I'm kidding. What I wanted to do was give you an opportunity to have a conversation with somebody about being on both sides. So one side being told what to do and treated one way, and then on the other side where somebody actually was appreciative of what you were doing and what the impact was. I mean, I know it's an obvious one, but I think it's good if you have a personal story. So take a moment and chat with somebody that you're with first talk about when somebody was imposing their force upon you. Go ahead, please. You guys have to include her. She's behind you.
Could you repeat, please?
Oh, that's okay. Just first talk about how, yeah, but first talk about how somebody imposed their force on you.
Sometimes you're in a position where you're supposed to be the leader, and that's a fine line to walk if you're trying to cover all bases. But yet, you know, if you keep, like what she was saying, as you're underlying, it will probably adjust your delivery.
Right.
The delivery, yeah.
It's not the intention behind it, it's the keeping more mindful, working on it, so you guys should take communication skills, but we're still working.
For some reason, not really consciously, I'm going super out of my way to be really super kind to people that are serving me, like the kid at the window at McDonald's, or, you know, that kind of thing. And, I mean, you almost get a feeling that they don't even know how to react.
Yes. I had that situation with cows, I introduced something because it was saying something. Just because he's so tall, people are really tough, but
Right.
so now, I was actually really nice to her, because I know what she does for them.
You get it.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, you've got such a gentle sounding voice anyway, so I'm sure that was a
Yeah, it does.
Sometimes it's nice to watch somebody else do something because they may do it different than you do it. So sometimes you learn from watching somebody else do something that maybe you know to do a different way. And you're like, wow, that's a different or shorter way to do something. But sometimes it is better just to let somebody else do something and, you know, see how they do it. But it's just a little different sometimes when you're a parent. Teaching your children, and then there's
I've
two
never been a
adults.
parent, so.
Yeah, and then two adults, you know, it's just like anything else, you get in the workplace, you see how someone else does something, you know, I don't need to do it that way, it's a lot better, or sometimes they see how you do it, and they're like, oh, I don't know you do it that way, so I think that's good, you know.
Well, it's funny too, because, you know, they said that, you know, we're a product of how we're raised, and I've heard a little bit of the story of my mom, you know, we might have had the same mom. And it had to be a certain way. I mean, I can remember washing dishes, and I still to this day remember these dark olive green dishes. And, you know, they made me wash dishes with detergent, like washing machine detergent. So if you didn't rinse it,
Let's go on to the second part.
What it's like when somebody talks to you in a different manner, without aggression. Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, you
Mhm.
have I mean,
No, we'll edit this out.
Right.
Actually, Mark's got the camera focused on you. No, I'm kidding. All right, I'm going to interrupt you just in the interest of time here. Obviously, most of you have gotten the idea. In my career, throughout the years, I've learned about tonality and facial expression and body posture. Naturally, all of those have an impact on the individuals as well. And being an empath, I'm very sensitive to tonality. If you raise your voice just a little bit, I get affected by it. Or if your face is misconstrued or construed, if you do a face, I'll react to it. I'm very sensitive to energies and energies in the room. So I know when it comes to tonality, you could say something one way and then say the same thing with a different tone of voice, and it comes out completely different. So that's something that I'm aware that one of the first things that I did was adjust my tonality when I'm giving instructions to individuals, is because sometimes you have to give instructions in the classroom. Obviously, we do that. We give instructions, but it's the way you give them. I had a great example this week. I had an email that was forwarded to me from a employee who, the email was announcing something, but it was quite motherly. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, thanks. It was just like matter-of-factly. And so the supervisor had asked, can you give this person advice on how to write a more empathic letter? And naturally, of course, there was a remodel going on, so one of the remodels had just finished, so the bathrooms were open and the kitchen was now opened. And so my introduction sentence was, oh, we're happy to announce the bathrooms are open, where theirs was, bathrooms are now open. You can use this, but please keep them clean. Like I said, it was very motherly. So there's the difference. We have to learn, even in emails, you can come across quite cutthroat instead of warm and inviting. I find it surprising that a lot of the next generation, when they do an email, they don't say hello or good morning or good evening. It's just hey, or just start, instead of the welcome. And so one of the things I hate saying the word instructed, but I didn't mean to say hate, excuse me. I have trouble saying the word instructed, but you have to give an instruction. The idea of saying good morning is because you're welcoming them, you're inviting them. It's like introducing a conversation, even though it's just on an email or a text. Now on text, that's harder too, because text, you just want to do it quickly, but there's still a nice way of saying hello and then thank you. Always have a gratitude at the end of thank you for your time or something like that. These are things that I've learned. There's a quote, I forgot to mention this quote by Aesop, no act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted, which I think is beautiful. Every act of kindness that we do is never wasted on that. So when I think about this, again, in summation, it would be the idea that it's not about the person, it's about the task. And for me, it was also about listening, because I only heard the first part, not about the task. What do you mean it's not about the task? So it's about the person. How we interact with individuals, again, it makes us either be magnetic or repulsive. What kind of individual do you want to be? Are you the type of person that wants to make a contribution? And now we get stuck on that too. Well, I am making a contribution by telling you how to do it right. Or letting people have their own experiences and learning. One of my favorite things is, I kind of do this on purpose sometimes. I'll hand my phone to my grandchildren and say, can you show me how to do Snapchat again? Because I still don't get it. My daughter was actually funny one day. I handed it to her boyfriend and said, can you show me? And she said, oh, don't waste your time. She's not going to remember. Which I don't. And it makes me laugh. If you knew me back in the 90s and the early 2000s, I was the tech guru with a family. I had the top of the line of everything. And then something happened. It went faster than I was able to keep up with it, and I didn't care anymore. And then it just went beyond me, and I still don't understand it. And I think Snapchat's going away now and Instagram's making a comeback or something. I'm like, huh. So I just hand the phone. But this is what I was getting back to. So handing it to my grandchildren, I love how excited they get to show me what to do. Well, here, you got to do this, and then do this, and this. And even though they're doing it, and I can't learn by somebody doing it for me, I have to do it, I let them do it because they get so excited in showing me what they've learned. And so sometimes that's the best way we can explain things to people too, is show me what you learned. How do you know how to do this? And let them explain. Even if I know what to do, show me how to do it. That's an easy way to do it. I will tell a very funny story. My son is practicing his driving test now. And so I grew up 3-point turn, parallel parking. You don't need to do that anymore because every car's got a camera or an automatic assist, but I've got him trying it anyway. And so I set up the cones in the street and everything, and he's trying as the best he can to back in and back out, doing a terrible job. He keeps running over the trash can or the laundry bin. I'm like, Joe, if those were cars, think, if no cars. But and the neighbors are going by, they're all doing the thumbs up, like, hey, good job. And then he finally said, I love this. He said, can you let me do it on my own without you telling me what to do? And I kind of went, sure, honey. So he rolled the window up. So he couldn't hear me. And you know what? He did it. By letting him do it on his own and figure it out, he did it. It took a couple of tries, but he did it. He just was like zoop, zoop. And I have a little car, so it turns quite well. Boom, 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 just like that. I was so taken back thinking, gosh, I should have just asked him what he thought instead of me telling him how to do it. No, cut it here, cut it here, cut it here. Instead of doing that, I should have just, but that's the way I've been teaching him all along. I don't know why all of a sudden I changed. It must have been because it was nervous and he's in the car by himself and I'm standing on the curb trying to get him to get the tail to come right where I am. It might have been that, I don't know, and I was standing outside in 100-degree temperature for an hour. Could have been that, don't know. But I do know I switched. And once he said, can I do it without you telling me what to do, I went, oh, Anne-Marie. And so then Mark came out and he goes, okay, here's what you actually have to do on the test, and it has nothing to do with what I was teaching him. I was like, it's okay, honey, now you know how to parallel park. But then we had to set up the cones and he couldn't get it done. And the poor kid, he gets in, he pulls the car, I have him back the car into the garage and he's sitting in the car and I go in the house, I come back out, he's still sitting in the car. And I go, Joe, honey, what do you do? And he goes, I'm never going to learn how to drive. I'm like, oh, honey, we just started. You got to just practice this little part right here. You'll be fine. And then he gets in, it's hard. I'm like, yes, I know, everything in life is hard, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, so that was a good reminder to me, let them learn on their own and step in if they ask. One great lesson, I'll end with this. George always used to say, he said this a lot in the classroom, he never gives advice, he waits until you ask. Wait until you're being asked. If you don't get asked, you don't say anything. And that's hard for an Italian New Yorker, and that's how I'll end it. So thank you all for being here tonight. I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday, and hopefully send people to Omega One. And then in October, we'll have our next Monday night workshop, which I do not know what the topic is yet. I have it written down, but I did not remember what it is. So thank you all. Hope you enjoyed yourself. Have a good night. Thank you, thank you, thank you.